The House Judiciary Committee will come to order. If the Secretary could please call the roll.
Chairman Briggs.
Here.
Representatives Donahue. Hanbidge. Hohenstein. Howard. Kenyatta.
Designation online.
Kincaid. Mays.
Designation.
Pielli. Rabb.
Designation.
Sanchez. Schusterman.
Designation.
Warren.
Designation.
Williams.
Designation.
Chairman Kaufman.
Present.
Representatives Bonner.
By designation.
Ecker.
By designation.
Ham.
Here.
Clunk.
By designation.
Ledbetter.
Here.
Owlett.
By designation.
Rigby. Rowe.
By designation.
Schemmel. Shalaba.
Having established the presence of a quorum, the committee is in order and will proceed with today's agenda. First on the agenda, in the order of the agenda, is House Bill 2162 by Representative Powell. I will be recognizing Representative Powell for some comments on her bill and followed by counsel for a brief explanation. Representative Powell, you're in order.
Thank you so much, Chairman. I appreciate the opportunity to talk a little bit about HB 2162, which would expand survivor benefits for folks living in public housing. I also would like to acknowledge my colleague, Representative Shelby Labs, who we worked very closely on this bill together. In 2018, the legislature passed its SB 919, which provided protections to domestic violence and sexual assault survivors who are tenants of a housing authority who needed to relocate. These protections would ensure that survivors were offered at least one of the following: relocation to another unit, a housing choice voucher, assistance identifying other housing, or a connection to a local organization that would offer the assistance doing the same sort of thing. However, victims of other violent crimes like armed home robbery or family members of homicide victims were not included in this legislation. This bill would narrowly address this gap by extending those provisions to victims of all violent crime and witnesses who were threatened with further violence. This would ensure that Pennsylvania's most vulnerable low-income survivors would be able to get the support that they needed to remain safely housed following a crime. This legislation, again, would ensure that those who've been victimized are able to live in spaces that are dignified and not have to fear either retaliation and ensure that they have the opportunity to relocate another housing authority unit or get, again, offered assistance to do so. So I appreciate the consideration of this legislation and thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much, Representative. Council Claudius, anything to add?
What I have to add is that there is one amendment to the bill, which I think Representative Powell sort of touched on already.
You're in order on Amendment A04924.
A04924 would add victims of other violence as well as victims of domestic or sexual violence to the protections in the bill.
Thank you. I'm just going to, a tech reminder, the folks online are saying they can't hear us. Okay, thank you. We will need a motion to consider A0492 made by Kincaid, seconded by Donahue. Are there any comments or questions on the amendment? Are there any negative votes on Amendment A04924? Seeing none, if the Secretary could please record it as a unanimous vote. Thank you, members. We'll need a motion. So we'll need a motion on Bill, off script here. 2162 as amended by Hanbidge, seconded by Kincaid. Are there any comments or questions on the bill as amended? Chairman Kaufman?
Thank you. I certainly appreciate the ladies' legislation and certainly the intent of the legislation. I think there's some tightening up that needs to be done and some potential changes that could make the legislation better. So at this point, I'm not going to be supporting it, but I do think that there's serious potential for positive vote in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. I am a strong supporter of this. I want to thank the representative for introducing this and advancing a really important topic. You've shown real willingness to work on the amendment to make it better, and I'm sure if there are positive suggestions to make the bill better, you would be open to having those conversations. I strongly encourage all the members to be voting yes. Secretary, please call the roll.
Chairman Briggs.
Yes.
Representatives Donahue. Yes. Hanbidge. Hohenstein. Howard. Kenyatta.
Designation yes.
Kincaid. Mays.
Designation yes.
Pielli. Rab. Sanchez. Schusterman.
Designation yes.
Warren.
Designation yes.
Williams.
Designation yes.
Chairman Kaufman.
No.
Representatives Bonner.
Designation, no.
Ecker.
Designation, no.
Ham.
No.
Clunk.
Designation, no.
Ledbetter.
No.
Owlett.
Designation, no.
Rigby.
Designation, oh, sorry.
Rowe.
Designation, no. I got ahead of myself there.
Schemmel. Shalaba. House Bill 2162 as amended passes.
Thank you, Secretary. House Bill 2162 passes and will be reported as amended. Congratulations, Representative. I am going to just pause for a moment to try to give us an opportunity to get the folks on Teams to be able to hear us. I mean, we have their designation, but is someone able to come or? Okay.
Testing. Testing 1, 2, 3.
If folks on Teams can hear us, if one of you can respond. Jeff, are they on Teams? Yeah, I don't see anyone. Oh. One's here. Is Perry here?
Testing 1, 2, 3. Testing 1, 2, 3. Testing 1, 2, 3. Testing 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, that's why I'm here.
Yeah, there's in the link, bottom.
Thank you, everyone, for that pause. I think we solved some of the problem and not all the problem. So we're going to proceed. I do apologize. Next on the agenda is House Bill 2198, introduced by Representative Kruger and Representative Brennan. I'm not sure if Representative Brennan is here. So I will be recognizing Representative Kruger for comments if Representative Brennan, oh, he's here for brief comments, followed by counsel for any additional explanation. Representative Kruger, you are in order when you get situated.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. To Chairman Briggs, Chairman Kaufman, members of the House Judiciary Committee, thank you for running House Bill 2198 in committee today. The purpose of this bill is simple: to put reasonable fees on requests for electronic medical records. Over a decade ago, there was a negotiation that led to a set cost for requests for paper copies of medical records. Electronic medical requests were not covered under that language, but over the last decade, electronic medical records have become much more common, and individuals are now often being charged more for electronic medical requests than they would be charged for paper copies. I have seen invoices in the thousands of dollars. The bill simply caps the cost of electronic medical records to create a fair environment. After numerous meetings with stakeholders, you'll be voting on an amendment today that increases our original proposed amount to a higher number in order to account for some of the concerns that we heard. I hope that the members of this committee will vote to support the amendment and the bill. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Representative. Representative Brennan, brief comments.
Thank you. Just briefly, this is a chance to control costs for consumers as well. This is a cost that's passed on in insurance prices, so this is a win-win.
Thank you, Representative. Council Claudius, any additional explanation on House Bill 2198?
No additional explanation, but I would note the amendment is A04914.
You're in order on Amendment A04914.
A04914 raises the limit on the charges for electronic records to $200 from the current $6.50 in the bill, $6.50 in the bill.
Thank you, Council. I'll need a motion to bring up amendment by Sanchez, seconded by Hanbidge. Amendment A4914 is motioned and seconded. Are there any questions on the amendment? Seeing none, Chairman Kaufman.
Thank you. I can certainly appreciate the desire to reduce costs in this area. I would note that I think likely reasonable is in the term reasonable is in the eye of the beholder, and when there are significant requests, huge requests, there can be very significant amounts of time that are invested in compiling the trove of information that is submitted or responded to electronically. So while I understand the intent, I can appreciate the intent, I believe all stakeholders need to be in the room and need to have conversations on what actually reasonable is. And with that, I'm going to be opposing the amendment in the bill. Thank you.
Any other comment? Sorry, any other comments or questions on the bill or on the amendment? We are on the amendment. So, we posted this bill last week. There's one amendment filed, the Briggs Amendment, which seeks to address the modification. Anyone is always able to participate in that process and file an amendment on committee, but I do think $200 is reasonable. I'm sure we will hear from a lot more folks after today about the future of this bill and continued conversations, and I know that the chair is very comfortable in having those conversations and trying to continue movement on this. So I strongly support approval of this amendment and encourage a yes vote. Secretary, please call the roll.
Chairman Briggs.
Yes.
Representatives Donahue. Hanbidge. Hohenstein. Howard. Kenyatta.
Designation, yes.
Kincaid. Mays.
Yes.
Pielli. Rab. Sanchez. Schusterman.
Designation, yes.
Warren.
Designation, yes.
Williams.
Designation, yes.
Chairman Kaufman.
No.
Representatives Bonner. I'm sorry, was that a yes? Ecker.
No.
Ham,
No.
Clunk,
No.
Ledbetter, Allett, Rigby, Rowe,
No.
Schemmel, Shalaba. The amendment passes.
Thank you, Secretary. Amendment passes. We will need a motion and a second on the bill as amended by May, seconded by Donahue. Are there any comments or questions on the bill as amended? Representative Kincaid, you're in order.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We've been contacted pretty extensively about this bill, and I've read all of the opposition, and, I find, one, some of the opposition to be lacking in the sense that there is no specificity in terms of what it is that, their concerns are. They raise the issue of this would be cost prohibitive, but provide no examples of that. And so while I understand there needs to be a balance, I think that what we just amended absolutely does that. Other states are doing this. It's working just fine in New Jersey and other states that have, a relatively similar cap. This is a balancing act between patients and the needs of patients and the ability to access records, and the cost associated with producing those records. But I appreciate that some people are concerned about what the cost is going to be to them, but I also think that that's not enough of a reason to be a no on this bill, because we have done what we need to do in order to find a middle ground. And so I would encourage a yes vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative. Any additional comments or questions on the bill as amended? So I do want to thank the two prime sponsors for their work on this to try to address specifically electronic medical records and the cost for retrieving them. That's what I think this bill successfully does. And I do encourage you, and I know you will continue to have those conversations to try to see how to continue to address it, to make it recognizable that it's less than paper copies, but that there is still a cost associated with it. I think $200 is, based on conversations I've had, is an acceptable number, and I encourage a yes vote on all of this. And if the Secretary could please call the roll, we can proceed.
Chairman Briggs.
Yes.
Representatives Donahue, Hanbidge, Hohenstein, Howard, Kenyatta,
Designation yes.
Kincaid, Mays.
Yes.
Pielli, Rab, Sanchez, Schusterman,
Designation yes.
Warren,
Designation yes.
Williams.
Designation yes.
Chairman Kaufman,
No.
Representatives Bonner, Ecker,
No.
Ham,
No.
No.
Oh, sorry.
Clunk,
No.
Ledbetter, Allett, Rigby, Rowe,
No.
Schemmel, Shalaba. House Bill 2198 as amended passes.
House Bill 2198 passes and will be reported as amended. Congratulations, Representative Krueger and Brennan. Next on the agenda is House Bill 2269 by Representative Kenyatta. I will try to recognize Representative Kenyatta on Teams for comments, followed by counsel for any additional explanation. Representative Kenyatta, if you can hear us, you are in order.
Thank you so much, Chairman, and thank you to members of the committee for allowing us to bring forward this bill today. This bill is pretty simple in that it amends Title 23 of the PA codes by repealing provisions that pertain to marriage between individuals of the same sex. Listen, I know that some people today may argue that this legislation is unnecessary, given what the Supreme Court ruled in Obergefell versus Hodge. And while that decision was critical and did render the provisions that we're seeking to repeal today outdated. The fact that these statutes are outdated proves the point and the necessity of us doing this. And it also sends an important message about us embracing William Penn's vision of tolerance and acceptance, no matter who you are. I fundamentally believe, and I think that most Pennsylvanians believe and understand, that Pennsylvania is better when it's fairer. And updating these statutes, while a formality, is an affirmation of that very point, that Pennsylvania is better when it's fairer. This is a crucial step, Mr. Chairman, in fostering a society where everybody not only hears those words about being included, no matter who you are, where you're from, but ensuring that that's true. And so thank you, Mr. Chairman, for bringing this up. I ask for an affirmative vote and look forward to repealing these outdated statutes.
Thank you, Representative. I'm glad you were able to join us, and the technical issue was on our end, so I apologize about that. Council Claudius, anything additional on the bill or amendment?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. I would just note that this bill would remove Section 1704 of the Domestic Relations Code, which provides in part that a marriage between persons of the same sex entered into in another state or foreign jurisdiction is void. That's currently in conflict with Supreme Court, U.S. Supreme Court cases. I would also note there is one amendment.
Council, you're in order on Amendment A04945.
A04945 changes the definition of marriage in Section 110.2 of the Domestic Relations Code to be a civil contract between two individuals. It is currently defined as a civil contract by which one man and one woman take each other as husband and wife.
Thank you, Council. We'll need an amendment on, a motion on the amendment by Sanchez, seconded by Mays. Are there any comments or questions on the amendment? Secretary, please call the roll.
Chairman Briggs.
Yes.
Representatives Donahue,
Designation, yes.
Hanbidge,
Designation, yes.
Hohenstein, Howard, Kenyatta,
Designation, yes.
Yes.
Kincaid, Mays,
Yes.
Pielli, Rab, Sanchez, Schusterman,
Designation, yes.
Warren,
Designation, yes online.
Williams,
Designation, yes.
Chairman Kaufman,
No.
Representatives Bonner, Ecker,
Yes.
Ham, Clunk,
Yes.
Ledbetter, Allett, Rigby, Rowe,
No.
Schemmel, Shalaba. The amendment passes.
Thank you, Secretary. Amendment is adopted. We'll need a motion to report out House Bill 2269 as amended by Mays, seconded by Representative Rabb. Are there any comments on the bill as amended? Representative Schemmel on the bill as amended.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The intent of this legislation is to change the definition of marriage to include same-sex couples. It does not make room for platonic couples, couples in close family relationships, or those in polyamorous relationships. Like same-sex couples, all of these other relationships can be loving, committed, and long-term. In this regard, there is nothing to distinguish any of them from same-sex relationships. The objective of this legislation has already been accomplished through federal preemption. However, states need not conform our laws to federal directives, so this legislation affords us an opportunity to explore what legal marriage is and why the state has always had an interest in promoting it. Pennsylvania law on marriage is not based on religious beliefs, meritorious acknowledgement, nor the sanctioning of love. Indeed, none of these elements need be present in order to contract a legal marriage in Pennsylvania. The requirements the state does mandate, however, point to a singular objective, one that is not exclusive to the husband and wife, but rather to the children they may together conceive. The state has an interest in promoting the well-being of children, and they are the one thing that only men and women working in concert can produce. The state's interest in marriage, therefore, is rooted in simple biology. In addition to co-created life, a husband and wife also offer a child a home with a biological mother and father, both who offer the unique gifts that their sex and are irreplaceable. Neither a mother nor a father is superfluous. It would be sad commentary as we approach Father's Day to argue that fathers are not necessary in the lives of their children. The state has always considered the intact natural family to be the ideal arrangement for the nurturing of children and has, for that reason alone, promoted legal marriage as a means of support and stability. For that reason, the relationship between husband and wife, when the relationship between husband and wife is ruptured through divorce, annulment, or separation, the state benefits of marriage are withdrawn. Married couples who are unable to conceive or who do not wish to do so are still presumed under the law as potentially able to conceive and therefore extended the benefits of marriage. Any lawyer who studied the Duke of Norfolk's case of 1683 may recall the court's acknowledgement of this legal doctrine, the doctrine of the fertile octogenarian. I don't mean to send shivers through the spines of former law students, but this would also be where the rule of perpetuities was laid out. Pennsylvania's current law on marriage recognizes that men and women beget children and that the best place for any child is with his or her mother and father. That is not to say that there aren't other relationships that provide stability and love for children, but only that the state has always recognized that there is something unique about a child's natural mother and natural father that make that the ideal setting for family life. That is a unique relationship, and one which the state has always encouraged in a special way through the institution of legal marriage. Elements of the current law on marriage reverberate through our statutes and well-established common law. For example, there are 4 conditions under which a marriage under Pennsylvania law can be annulled. The first 3 relate to consent, but the 4th declares a marriage voidable if it is not able to be consummated. By very definition, only a biological man and a biological woman can consummate a marriage because the term requires sexual complementarity. Now, these comments are not a commentary on other kinds of relationship. The law does not assert that same-sex relationships are either good or bad, only that they are different in a substantial way, and that changing the law on marriage alters the fundamental understanding and calls into question the convention by which the state recognizes marriage altogether. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
You gave us some suggestions on additional bills that we'll have to address. Representative Hohenstein, you are in order on the bill as amended.
Thank you, Chair. I'm making my statements as an ally and as someone whose family is directly impacted by the current state of marriage equality and the access to it. So, as the sponsor of the bill indicated, almost 10 years ago, the Supreme Court ruled that marriage equality is the law of the land for the United States as a whole. This bill effectively makes certain that Pennsylvania as a commonwealth complies with that law. And as long as an archaic law, like the one that we're seeking to change now, are still on the books, those are going to be reminders of the cruel, dehumanizing time of laws that did not see people, did not even acknowledge their existence. And one interesting thing about today is that it's the 8th anniversary of the Pulse massacre. 49 people were killed that day simply for being who they were. And in order to make sure that we have a proper bulwark and protection against that type of extreme action, we need to make sure that we are taking steps to remove the legal vestiges that still exist in Pennsylvania law that would justify any type of discrimination against the LGBTQ plus community, and frankly, against anyone who wants to join in the institution of marriage. And on a personal note, I am, as I've already indicated a number of times before, the parent of a trans person. They can, under this current law, as stated by our Supreme Court of the United States, enter into a marriage should they choose. They can do that now, but they would not be able to do it if the current Supreme Court, which has shown itself to be more than willing to engage in judicial activism and to take us backward in the way that we view individual rights and those individual rights as related to the rest of society. If that were to occur, I would want Pennsylvania to remain a bulwark of marriage equality, and for that reason, this bill needs to go off the books. And I support the maker of the bill, and again, as an ally, I support the community of all Pennsylvanians who wish to join into the institution of marriage.
Thank you, Representative. Representative Rabb.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I wasn't going to rise to speak today. I'm very supportive of this bill, and this impacts my family as well. I appreciate the remarks of the prior speaker. And I also appreciate the consistent nuances and thoughtfulness of my colleague from Franklin County. We never have any dull conversations, and I appreciate the rigor with which he thinks about legislation that comes before us. And there were some things that he said that I thought were particularly relevant to this conversation. So often we play around the edges of institutions and issues without addressing perhaps the root problem, root causes of things that come before us. And my colleague mentioned some of the early and ongoing purposes of marriage as seen through the eyes of various experts and such. He mentioned polyamorous relationships, perhaps platonic relationships, maybe multi-generational familial relationships where there's no romantic interactions in terms of how do you protect different types of relationships that build family. And I think those are really important questions for us to address in other legislation, as the majority chair referenced after his remarks. But they are relevant to this conversation too, because when we talk about marriage, when we talk about, for those folks who believe it is a sacred bond, let's also realize that in this country and in this state, there were certain people who were not allowed to get married because they were not considered human beings, because they were property of certain white people. They were enslaved. And so I descend from strong parental units who could not get married because they were black. There are people, there are workers who were wet nurses for white mothers So when we talk about what the specific gender role is of people in married couples, let's talk about it, because there are things that were outsourced to other people outside of those heterosexual Christian relationships to benefit those folks who chose to use the labor of others. So if you're not familiar with the history of wet nursing, that's when a biological mother would give their baby to another woman to breastfeed them. And that tradition in the South was to give to enslaved cisgender black women. That was acceptable in traditional marriage, but we don't talk about it. So I just want to acknowledge and add to the comments of my esteemed colleague from Franklin County, because you're right. This doesn't address all of those issues, and we need to have those conversations. And I am thankful that the maker of the bill has brought this up, because it allows us to explore the nuances and complexities of institutions that have evolved. Evolution is a good thing. What existed in the previous generations and centuries may not make sense for us today. And I want to give another example that's relevant to the Judiciary Committee, because I believe up until the 90s, it was okay for a husband to rape his wife. That if he was married, that it didn't count until that law was repealed. So let's look more deeply at how we talk about the institution of marriage and what was acceptable and what we need to do to make sure that any institution that we uphold, that we embrace, that we improve through a lens of humanity and empathy and care, and that helps all people irrespective of the bodies they inhabit or the color of their skin. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Representative. And I didn't do this today for this reason, but it is, as Representative Hohenstein acknowledged, the 8th anniversary of the massacre at the Pulse nightclub, but it's also Loving Day, from the decision, Loving v. Virginia, that changed what you were talking about. So sometimes things happen for a reason on days, and today shows kind of it happens again. Representative Kincaid.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to begin by pointing out that outdated laws are pulled out of our statutes all the time. We have done this actually multiple times in this committee this session. When what is in statute is no longer applicable, we pull it out. And this is just one more of those things. Yes, marriage is incentivized by the government in order to create stable family units, because that is the government's interest fundamentally in it, is that it benefits our economy, it benefits the civil society, it makes people, it balances things. But you can have all of those things with same-sex marriage. As we've seen since Obergefell, nothing has fallen apart. The world has not ended. We are seeing a growing number of loving, stable families. We are seeing same-sex couples have children. We have the science and the technology for those couples. If marriage is really intent on child producing, those couples absolutely can have children. We have the ability to do all of that. So the concerns that that's the case is unfounded. And, quite honestly, if we are talking about what marriage is, we're only talking about marriage from the Christian perspective of things, because in Islam, marriage is about sex. It's not actually about producing children. Marriages happen in order to take care of any children that result from sex, but they're not, it is for a different motivation. So we're applying one religion and one religious take on what marriage is, and we have no recognition of a formal religion in this country. But what I really want to say in this is that when we talk about the biological mother and the biological father being the ideal, we completely discount all of the experiences of people like me who had a biological mother who was abusive. That's not the ideal. I was 11 years old the first time I asked my dad to get a divorce. My mother pulled my sister down the stairs by her hair. How is that the ideal? I would trade a safe, loving, same-sex parentage for what I experienced and what my sister experienced any day of the week. And the idea that we shouldn't change outdated laws because we have some idea that a biological mother is inherently better than a loving parent, regardless of whether or not they are related, is dangerous, it's harmful, and it completely discounts the people like me who, I don't have a relationship with my mom. Because she looked me in the eyes and she told me that she didn't need to be sorry for any of the things that she did to me because it was a result of her mental illness and they didn't count. So I find it really insulting to talk about the marriage being between one man and one woman as if that is inherently better, and it's not. And I am the living proof that it's not. And I would ask everyone to be a yes on this because it is just pulling outdated language out of our statutes and recognizing that families look different. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Representative. Representative Pielli.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I think back to our founding fathers when they were seeking to create a more perfect union, recognizing that, of course, things weren't necessarily perfect, nor would they be going forward. But in our 248-year-old experiment, we faced those needs and those realities. It's mentioned about the anniversary of Virginia versus Loving, which is something that's near to my heart, was in my lifetime, and it enabled me to marry my wife. And fast forward, I have 2 gay children. And when they look at language like this, and they think of our 248-year-old experiment, where is the place for them in their future and their friends? This is about doing the right thing. This is about continuing that duty we all have to create a more perfect union. Love is love. That is why I am for this bill, and I ask and urge every single member to be on the right side of history and vote yes. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Representative. Representative Mays.
Thank you, Chair. I want to start by thanking my colleague, the gentleman from Philadelphia County, for this bill and his unwavering leadership in advancing equality in this Commonwealth. I proudly co-sponsor this bill. It is long past time for fairness and justice when it comes to the LGBTQ+ community. It is long past time for equality and equity for all those who want to enter into the institution of marriage. For me, I won't sit here and defend my humanity as a LGBTQ+ woman, as a partner person, and as a mother. This bill, this language is out of date and out of touch with where we are today as a society. We need to move in the direction of the present and the future, making sure that we expand this possibility for marriage for all who seek it and all who desire it. And it's challenging to sit here, and I appreciate all my ally colleagues who offer their support for their own experience, but also in support of LGBTQ plus people across the Commonwealth, wherever they may live, wherever they may love. Thank you for the allied support. It's necessary. It's hard to decide if you're going to speak about your lived experience as a legislator and as a member of this hallowed committee. What I will say is, as a Commonwealth, we must always be moving forward in the direction of justice, and this bill allows us to do such. And I ask for us as a committee on both sides of the aisle to do what we know is right and best for those that we serve across the Commonwealth. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Representative. Are there any other comments or questions before we go to the maker for closing comments? Representative Kenyatta, you're in order, and then we're going to go to a roll call. Representative Kenyatta.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman. And I just want to thank all of my colleagues who've spoken on this. You know, at the end of the day, and from Allegheny County just referenced this. Being on this committee in this moment, offering this legislation, I am conscious of the fact that just simply removing this out of statute, the reality of an Obergefell case, that was made possible by so many loving couples who over years and decades organized, litigated, participated in the political process to move our nation and ultimately our governing documents in a direction that represents the constant struggle to be more perfect that we've always engaged in. As the gentlelady from Allegheny County said, because of those shoulders that I stand on, because of the work that was done, I'm also not before this committee going to defend my relationship or beg for your approval and understanding of my marriage to my husband. But I also recognize that I'm the only person in the legislature in a same-sex married relationship, and in fact, in all of elected state government. And for those who are curious, who are in need of a perspective and curious about the roles in the relationship and what this would mean, the roles are just as simple and complex as the roles I assume in your house. My role often is to wash the dishes, to take out the trash, to take the clothes down to the washer machine. I often fail at that role. My role is to, when I'm not in Harrisburg with you all, to take out our dog and walk her. I usually just let her out back. That's often my role. My role is to go home to the best gift that God ever gave me and my husband, Dr. Kenyatta, and to treat him with dignity and respect and support him and support our family. And thankfully, because of the work done and because of the Supreme Court decision, we are able to engage in all of those roles and more with each other. Pennsylvania law should reflect where we are. And I would ask that none of my colleagues throw themselves out as martyrs for a past that we have already defeated in terms of bad ideas that separated and made second class loving relationships like mine. I would ask all of my colleagues to do something that we do all the time to make Pennsylvania law reflect the reality of our present and our future. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much. Representative Secretary, please call the roll.
Chairman Briggs.
Yes.
Representatives Donahue,
Designation yes.
Hanbidge,
Designation yes.
Hohenstein, Howard, Kenyatta,
Designation yes online.
Yes.
Yes.
Kincaid, Mays,
Yes.
Pielli, Rab, Sanchez, Schusterman,
Designation yes.
Warren, Williams,
Designation yes.
Chairman Kaufman,
No.
Representatives Bonner, Ecker,
Yes.
Ham, Clunk,
Yes.
Ledbetter, Allett, Rigby, Rowe,
No.
Schemmel, Shalaba. Mr. Chairman, House Bill 2269 as amended passes.
House Bill 2269 passes and will be reported as committed. Congratulations, Representative Kenyatta. Thank you. Last on the agenda, we do have permission from the Speaker and the parliamentarian to extend our meeting. They will hold session until we start, I guess. Is Senate Bill 920 by Senator Langer-Holk. I've been looking around the room. I don't know if Senator Langer-Holk is here because my good partner showed me a picture of him. I don't know what he looks like. So I don't think he's here. If council could provide an explanation of Senate Bill 920.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Senate Bill 920 amends the Sexual Assault Testing and Evidence Collection Act of 2006 to establish a statewide sexual assault evidence tracking system. It directs the Pennsylvania Commissioner on Crime and Delinquency to coordinate with state police to establish the system and to administer it with help from the Department of Health, the Attorney General, and the state police. There are no amendments.
Thank you, Council. I'll need a motion to report out Senate Bill 920 by Representative Kaufman, seconded by Representative Pielli. Are there any comments on the bill? Seeing none, are there any negative votes on the bill? Seeing none, if the Secretary could please record it as a unanimous vote, and the bill passes. Thank you. This meeting is adjourned.